Hey, happy Monday to you today. I have this little nugget that I've been chewing on, and it has brought so much freedom for me personally. And so, of course, I want to share that with you because my heart for you is to live in great joy and freedom. And we've talked about this last week, but I really believe we're in this era. Oh, justice rolls down, and the Lord is aligning and ordering things, and there's a weight. His glory is weighty, and when that weight comes, basically, it can really put some tension on things and want to collapse things. But as believers in Him, really what He's doing is He's exposing that weakness because He loves us so much. And He's going, no, I want you to shore up the walls here. And so it's such a beautiful thing because He actually shines a light on the darkness so that that darkness can be removed. And so we're in this season in our nation, and of course I don't have to tell you that it's dark. Just watch the news for 10 minutes. I try not to watch the news and still find it everywhere I go as I walk through the airport and restaurants and all those different things. And so I really believe that as this year of justice rolls down and as things are exposed, and even as I read things of exposures of just leaders and maybe hypocrisy and hidden sin and all those things, and that really wants to weigh us down. But God, right? The joy of the Lord is our strength. And I've always been like, that's awesome. Like, I totally believe that because when I'm not in joy, I don't have strength. But what are the practical ways to get there? Well, one way is worship. And I believe the Lord really challenged me recently as I was embarking on this fast, and we were doing this as a team for our prayer conference, to worship for 1 hour a day. And I love worship. I like to worship with music, without music. I like to be verbal. I like to worship from my heart. We're created to worship. But I believe David, the psalmist, is such a worshiper, and I love to just feast on the Psalms and go through those, especially when I'm going through, a trial or just a significant troubling where you find your soul troubled. And I want to be transparent for a moment and just share that I've been having some health issues lately. And it's kind of been like one test after another test, and the tests aren't looking favorable type thing. And so sometimes I can feel in the midst of this thing that I'm walking through where my soul wants to rise up and my soul wants to be unsettled. And you fear, you think maybe a flash of a worst case scenario goes through your mind, and it's so important not to partner with those. And of course I'm sharing this and learning with you. Definitely don't have that mastered, but your soul feels troubled, and you know what that feeling's like. It's just like this gnawing thing. And one of the greatest things that I have found in the midst of that is to worship, is just to release worship. And it focuses off of yourself and focuses onto God. And as you release that worship, when you're worshiping Him, His glory just pours out over you and His majesty, and it gets our thoughts on Him. But I wanted to share something out of Psalm 62. David says, "My soul find rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken." And then David kind of paints this picture of like people assaulting him, talking about him, all of this stuff. And he repeats it 2 verses later. And I think this is so significant. "Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. My hope comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in Him at all times, O people. Pour your hearts out." And I love that because I have moments in my life, and I believe that there's so many keys here where it's like my soul is not lining up with my spirit, because my spirit is valiant and my spirit knows the truth. And my spirit knows that God is fighting on my behalf, but I have these soulish moments where my soul is unsettled and I'm having these flashes of thoughts, worst case scenarios, vain imaginations, all of those things. And I've literally been saying, nope, soul, you don't get to do that. You will find rest in God alone, for He is my refuge and He is my strength. And at the very end of this chapter, it says, one thing God has spoken, two things have I heard. And I think that's significant because sometimes our mind can just swirl with all of these thoughts and images. And so he's reminding himself. I believe David talks about himself in first person because he's speaking it over himself. He's saying, I will find, let's see, let me find it here. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. And I believe he's talking about that in first person because it's a declaration and he's reminding himself. There's something about speaking that out loud where your soul has to come into agreement with your spirit. And so at the very end, which the chapter is not very long, but he says, one thing that God has spoken, two things have I heard. And I get the idea. He's reminding himself here that you, O God, are strong and that you, O Lord, are loving. And so sometimes we're in situations, I don't know about you, but where your mind just is like swirling on all of these things and you just have to stop and you have to come back and you have to worship and you have to speak to your soul and say, find rest, O my soul, in God alone. He is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. And you just speak that out loud, and there's so much strength in that. And I really believe in these days of darkness, it's so important to remind yourself of that. And so I wanted to share that with you this week because my heart for you is to live in such freedom and such joy and peace. And sometimes we hear these things, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And it's like, what does that mean exactly? You know, and so we have to practically nail some pieces of how to get there. And so I hope this has been helpful for you. I love you and I'm cheering you on as always. See you soon.